In this video, I want to establish some important controls in the Microsoft Word interface, which might be a little different from other applications that you've used. I'm working on Windows, so I'll go to the Start menu to launch Microsoft Word. And on this welcome screen, I want to make sure that Home is selected over on the left, and I want to open a new blank document, so I'll choose that option here. And that takes us to the main Word interface, and this is where you'll do most of your work. It's important to introduce this row of buttons up at the top, which is called the ribbon. Now, some people call it a toolbar, which is fine, but the correct name for it is the ribbon. And you get lots of important controls here, like copying and pasting text, or changing the formatting of your text, and much more. But you should notice at the top of the ribbon where it says File, Home, Insert, and so on. Right now, Home is selected, so I'm looking at the Home ribbon. If I click on Insert, that switches me to the Insert ribbon, where we have different controls. So each of these opens a different ribbon. Now, lots of people call these tabs, and again, that's fine, but officially we're switching to different ribbons. And the Home ribbon is selected by default when you open Microsoft Word because the controls that you use most often are there. Next, I want to click on File up here in the top left. And the File button is only there if you're working on Windows. For Mac users, I'll show you what you have in just a moment. But here on Windows, I can click where it says File, and that takes us to what is called the Backstage view. And this is where you have your options to save your document, make a new document, print, get information, and much more. So when you click File, you get the Backstage view, and then you can click this Back button up in the top left to go back to the regular document editing interface. And of course, all of these other buttons across the top open up the different ribbons. So the ribbons and the Backstage view are the main interface elements that you need to work with, and we'll be building on these as we go. Now, there is one big difference if you're using a Mac. On the Mac, you do have the ribbons up at the top and they do work the same, but there is no File button and no Backstage view. That's because applications on a Mac always have these menus up at the top of the screen. Since I'm in the Word application, the first menu is labeled as Word. Then there is a File menu, an Edit menu, and a bunch of others. And if you go into that File menu, you'll find things like saving the document or printing. So if you're a Mac user, just keep an eye out for that difference as we go through this course. Almost everything that a Windows user would find in the Backstage view, a Mac user will find in this File menu. It just has a more traditional menu-based interface. Let's make a new document in Microsoft Word and see how to save it. When you launch Word, you start here at the Welcome screen. Over on the left, you can select Home, and from here you can make a new blank document, or you can choose from one of these common templates. Or you can click New over on the left, and once again, you can make a new blank document, or you've got a much bigger list of templates. But for now, let's just make a new blank document. I'll select that. And of course, this big white space here is the body of that document. And I can see this blinking cursor just waiting for me to type something. So I'm going to type a little bit here. And let's just pause there and talk about saving a document. If you need to close this and continue working on it later, you need to save this document as a file. If you're using Windows, you can click the File button near the top left, and that'll take you to the Backstage view. And then you're looking for the options for Save or Save As. Now, since this is a new document that has not been saved yet, at this point, both of these options will basically do the same thing. So I can click on one of those. And now I need to do two things. First, I need to choose where I want to save the file, and I need to give it a name. And this is what it looks like on a Windows computer. If you are signed into a Microsoft account, you may see OneDrive or SharePoint listed here. These are online storage tools connected to your Microsoft account. So you could save your file to one of those. Or if you want to save this as a file on your computer's storage drive, you can click this PC and find the folder you want, or you can click Browse, and that gives you a more traditional save window. So once again, we're going to choose the location, and just using the shortcuts over here on the left, I'm going to choose the Documents folder as the location. And the second thing I need to do is give it a name. Now, it's put in a suggested name here based on what I typed. I could change that name, but just for now, I'm going to keep that. Then I'll click Save, and now I have saved that document. And up at the top, I can see the name of the document. So that's how it works on Windows, but this process looks a little bit different on a Mac. Here on a Mac, to save the document, I'll go to the File menu up at the top, and then you've got those options for Save or Save As. So since this is the first time I'm saving this document, I can choose either. That opens this panel, And you can toggle between online locations or on my Mac. If you choose online locations, you can store your file on your OneDrive. But if you want to store it on the storage drive on your computer, you should choose on my Mac. Then you'll need to give it a name here in this field. So I'm just going to keep the suggested name. Then you need to choose the folder where you want to save it. You could choose a folder from this menu, but if you don't see the folder you want, you can click this arrow button here, which will expand the panel, and then you should be able to find the folder that you're looking for. I'm going to save this in my Documents folder, then I'll click Save, and now I have saved that file, and I can see the file name up here at the top. Now you can continue working, but when you make changes to your document, they won't be saved to that file unless you save them. So I'm going to add a little bit more text here. And to quickly save your changes to update the existing file, you could click this Save icon up at the top of the window. Looks like an old-style floppy disk. Or you can go to the File menu and simply click Save to update that file. Now you could click Save As, and that would let you save a new file. And this is what you should do if you want to keep the file that you had opened, but also save another duplicate version of the file with the new changes under a different name. But for now, I'm just going to click Save to update that file. Now you may notice that there is an autosave option up at the top of the window, and that's there on both Mac and Windows. This is off because autosave is not available when you save files on your computer storage drive. You can only use autosave if you save your document on OneDrive or SharePoint. Then you could come here and turn this on, and any changes you make will be saved automatically as you go. It's a very useful feature if you store your files on OneDrive. And finally, we started by launching Word, but if you have one document already open and you want to keep it open but make another new document, you certainly can. If you're working on the Mac, you can just go to the File menu and create a new document or a new document from template. I'll just choose New Document. So now I have this new document, but it's just opened in a separate window, and I still have that original document still open here in another window. Or, of course, if you're working on Windows, you can click File up in the top left corner, which takes you to the Backstage view. Then you can click where it says New over on the left, and you can create a new blank document, or you can start from a template. And if I do that, I've got this new document here, but that other document is still open. So if I move this window, I can still see that other document that I had. So that's how you can make a new document in Word and save it as a file. If you are working with a Microsoft 365 subscription, you have access to a version of Microsoft Word on the web, and that lets you work with Word from almost any computer with a web browser. I'm starting at the Microsoft 365 website, which you can get to by going to office.com, and I've already signed in with my Microsoft 365 account. There's a button for Microsoft Word over on the far left, or in the top left corner, you can click on the app chooser and open Word from there. And now we're working with a version of Microsoft Word, but we're still in the web browser. I could make a new blank document, I could start from a template, and there's a link here for more templates. Or you can open a file that you already have stored on your OneDrive. OneDrive is an online storage tool from Microsoft, and it's included with a Microsoft 365 account. When you use Word on the web, you cannot save your files directly to your computer. They must be saved on OneDrive, or you can work on files that are stored on SharePoint or in Microsoft Teams. So let's start by making a new blank document. I'll just click that option up here at the top. So this new document is immediately saved to my OneDrive. And up at the top, I can see the name of the document, which right now is just Document, but I can click on that and I could type in a new name for the document. And I can also see which folder that document is stored in on my OneDrive. And I could click this arrow to move it to a different folder, but for now, I'm just going to click outside of that, and I can see the name of the document up at the top. And now I can just get to work on this document. So I can type in some text. And since it's stored in an online storage location, all of my changes will be automatically saved as I go. Up at the top, we have the ribbons. I see the home ribbon and insert ribbon and layout and so on. Now, you don't have all of the same features as you do in the full Microsoft Word application, but the most essential tools are here, and most of the features that we'll use in this course are available in Word on the web. So why would you use this version? Well, one situation is if you're working on a computer where you cannot install the full version of Microsoft Word, but you can go to the Microsoft 365 website. Also, if somebody emails you a link to a shared Word document from OneDrive or SharePoint, that document will open in Word on the web. And it can be a very convenient way to make quick edits or just read a document without launching another application. Now, earlier we started by going directly to Word Online, but you could also start by going straight to your OneDrive. And if you're on the Microsoft 365 website, you can click the app chooser in the top left, and you can go to OneDrive from there. So if you work with OneDrive or even SharePoint, you can open a Word document that has been saved there, and you'll see it will open in that web-based version of Word. Also, if you use Microsoft Teams, and I have Teams running here, the files that you and your coworkers share in Teams are actually stored in Teams. And that is another of Microsoft's online storage tools. So when you click on a Microsoft Word file that has been shared in Teams, it will actually open that document in the Microsoft Teams window, but it's using that same web-based version of Microsoft Word with all of the same features and limitations. Now, finally, if you're ever working in the web-based version of Word, but you hit some limitation and you'd like to open the document in the full Microsoft Word application, you can do that, as long as you are working on a computer where you have that application installed, and you must be signed into the same Microsoft 365 account in the Word application. If you're starting from the Teams window like this, you can just click this button up at the top that says Open in Desktop App. Or if you are actually in Microsoft Word in a web browser, you can click this editing menu up at the top and choose Open in Desktop App from there. It may ask you some questions and you'll need to confirm that you do want to open it, but then you'll see it will launch the Microsoft Word application and it will open that same document. Now, of course, this file is stored on OneDrive or Teams or whatever online storage location you're using. So, of course, an internet connection is required to do this. And since it is stored in an online location, the autosave switch up in the top left corner is turned on, so you don't have to save your changes. They will be saved automatically as you go. So Word on the web can be great for quick edits or when you're working on OneDrive or SharePoint or Microsoft Teams. And if you hit a limit, you may be able to open your online document in the full Microsoft Word application. In this video, I want to cover the basics of formatting text in a document. This is how you set the size, color, font, and other visual aspects of your text. But first, most people already know how to write text in a document. This blinking cursor is where the text will go when you start typing. And you can click anywhere in the document to set that blinking cursor. So I could click here at the beginning of this line to set the cursor there, and then I could just type in some text. You probably also know if you hit the return key, it will start a new line. But to be completely clear, hitting the return key in Microsoft Word starts a new paragraph. And we'll see paragraph formatting in a moment, so it's important to know that one paragraph ends and another begins when you hit the return key. Now next, we should see how to format our text, and the first thing you need to do is select the text that you want to format. If you want to select just one word, you can double-click on it. You can see that it's selected, and you can click anywhere else to clear that selection. But I want more than just one word, so I'm going to move my mouse to one side of some text, hold the mouse button down, drag across it, then let go, and now I have that text selected, and I can format it. Your formatting options for text are in the Home ribbon, so you should make sure the Home ribbon is selected, and then we'll go to these controls here. So in this menu, I can change the font of the selected text, and that's just the general look of the text. And in this menu, you can change the size. If you want to make it bold, you can click the B button. If you want to make it italics, you can click the I button, and it's all applied to that selected text. And there are a bunch of other options you can experiment with. And if you do something you don't like, you can click the Undo button in the Home ribbon to take one step back. Now, you may notice that the Home ribbon is sort of separated into sections, and if you're working in Windows, those sections are labeled. And you can see we've been working in the font section. But there are even more font formatting options that do not show up in the font section of the Home ribbon. If you select some text, then right-click on it and choose Font, that opens a panel where you have even more text formatting options. So I can make any of those changes we saw a moment ago, or I could choose one of these additional controls. For example, I'm going to turn on the small caps effect, then click OK, and you can see that applied to my selected text. Okay, so next, let's look at the paragraph section of the Home ribbon. And this is where you can format entire paragraphs of text. So, of course, you can select a paragraph, but in most cases, for paragraph formatting, you just have to place your cursor somewhere in that paragraph. So, I'm going to click to just place my cursor somewhere here on this line, and then I can choose one of these paragraph formatting options. So, maybe I want to align that text to the right side of the page or to the center. You can experiment with the different paragraph formatting options here. And just like what we saw with the font options, you can select some text, right-click on it, and choose Paragraph, and you'll get this panel with even more paragraph formatting options. For now, I'm just going to cancel that. And briefly, I want to take a look at styles. Styles give you pre-made formatting options that you can apply to a piece of text. Now, for styles, you do have to select the text, so I'm going to select this line. And then in the Home ribbon, you're looking for the Styles section. I can see a few styles here, but if you click this little arrow that's pointing down here, it expands that panel and you can see more. So you can select one of these styles and it will apply multiple formatting options at once. I can see it change the size and the color of this text. This is a great way to apply quick formatting changes multiple times within your document while maintaining consistency. I plan to apply this heading 1 style to several other lines in this document. And when I do that, I know that all of those lines will have identical formatting. And if you don't like these default styles, you can right-click on one and choose Modify, and you can change any of these parameters. So for example, I'm going to change the color of the text. Then I'll click OK. And you'll see that any changes you make there will be applied to any piece of text where you already applied that style. Now, clearly, there's a lot more to see with styles and a lot of other formatting options. As always, you can check out one of the Word Essential Training courses for a deeper look at these tools, or just experiment on your own and see what you can find. Formatting a document is different from formatting text. When you format a document, you're adjusting settings for the size of your page, your margins, and the general layout of the document. Some people do this when they start a document, but you can change these settings at any time. Now to start, I like to go to the View ribbon just to confirm that we're set to the Print Layout view. Then we'll go over to the Layout tab where most of these controls are found. And I want to start by going to the Size menu. And here you can choose the size and dimensions of the pages in your document. If you're working in the United States like I am, you'll see the option for Letter or US Letter near the top of this list. But if you've installed Word in a different region, this list will be organized differently, giving you the most common formats for your region at the top of the list. And if you don't know which page size to use, the default is usually the most common for your region, so you may never need to change anything here. But if I was starting a document that I needed to send to somebody in Europe, I might use the A4 size. Next, let's go to the Orientation menu. And sometimes you want to print your page in the landscape orientation. You might think of this as printing with the paper sideways. So now my pages are formatted with the larger dimension used for the width. And modern printers can handle that change in orientation. But I'm just going to go back to that menu and switch back to the portrait orientation. And then we'll go to the Margins menu. Now, it's very rare to ever print anything all the way to the edge of a sheet of paper. The margins are the empty space around all 4 edges of the page where you do not put any content. When you type in a document, the text just stays inside of these margins. But you can change the size of your margins here. You'll notice if I select the preset for narrow margins, the content in my page just moves closer to the edges. On a long document, this might mean that you can fit more content on fewer pages, but it is an aesthetic choice as well. Now, you can also go to the Margins menu and go to Custom Margins to set your margin size manually. Just remember, some printers will not be able to print too close to the edge of a page, so I don't recommend you do anything smaller than the narrow margin preset. I'm going to click OK here, and I want to finish up with some adjustments that you can make using the ruler. To enable the ruler, you can go to the View ribbon, and if you don't already have it turned on, you can click this box next to where it says Ruler, and that turns on these rulers at the top and the left side of the document. And of course, this gives you a measurement of how wide and tall your pages are, but you can also adjust margins or indents here. So the gray space on the left and right side of the ruler up at the top show you the margins that you have set for your page. And you cannot change your page margins here, but you can make adjustments to individual paragraphs. So what I'll do is scroll down in my document and just click to place my cursor somewhere in one of these paragraphs. Remember, a new paragraph starts when you hit the return key. And then up at the top, I'm going to grab this upward pointing arrow and I can drag that left or right, and I can do that on both the left and right side of the paragraph. And that changes the margin for that one paragraph, or really it's called the indent for that paragraph. Now next, I'm going to click on another paragraph, and you can see those settings have reset up here in the ruler. And I want to go over to the Home ribbon, and in your paragraph formatting options, there's an option here to increase the indent. And when I click on that, it increases the indent for this paragraph, and you can see that is represented by that arrow here in the ruler. And of course, I can drag that to change that indent. And then I'm going to click at the very beginning of the first line of this next paragraph. And this time I'm going to hit the Tab key on my keyboard, and you'll see it will add a tab space just to the beginning of this paragraph. But if we look up at the ruler, we can see that tab can be controlled by this downward pointing arrow. So I can drag that left or right to change the amount of space in that tab. And clearly, if I click on another paragraph, those controls in the ruler reset again. So using basic layout tools and the ruler, you can get the layout for your printed page all set. In this video, I will create the specific layout I want for my document using columns, page breaks, and section breaks. Now, before we get started, there's something I want to do which is optional, but it will really help me as I make layout changes. I want to go to the Home ribbon and click this button, which will turn on hidden formatting symbols. And that puts these weird symbols on my document. This symbol represents when I hit the return key to start a new paragraph, so I can easily tell when a new paragraph begins. There will also be some other symbols that we'll see later, and you can turn this on or off whenever you want. Okay, so now let's talk about sections. And I want to scroll down in my document to where I have this quote by Albert Einstein. And I want this to start on the next page. So how do you do that? Well, the obvious answer in this case is not the best practice. Some people would place their cursor at the beginning of that line, then hit the return key a bunch of times until it pushes that next line all the way down to the next page. But this is really not a good way to do this. If I add or remove text later, or even change the size of my text in this first section, then it will move everything that follows it up or down. I want this section to start on this next page no matter how much I edit the document later. So let's reset here. I'm going to hit the Delete key to delete those empty paragraph lines, and because I have my formatting symbols enabled, I can easily see that. So the better option here if you need to start a new page or a new section is to use a page break or a section break. So place your cursor at the beginning of the line, then go to the Layout ribbon, and open up this Breaks menu, and we're going to start with a regular page break. And I want you to see that that pushes everything down to the next page. I can scroll up and I can see everything that I had in that first part, and everything after the page break is on that second page. And if you have those formatting symbols turned on, then you can actually see where the page break happens. Now, we're not finished with breaks. We'll talk more about them in just a moment, but next I want to talk about columns. So I'm just going to place my cursor somewhere on this page, and I'll go to the Layout ribbon, I'll go to this Columns menu, and I'm going to choose the 2-column layout. And at first, this looks really good. This looks like exactly what I wanted. But you really need to be careful with this, because if I scroll up, you can see everything on this document is now set to 2 columns. When you set a column setting, it will be applied to the entire document, even if you have page breaks. So we can do this differently using section breaks. So what I'll do is go back to the Home ribbon and click the Undo button a couple times just to reset, so we're back here before we made those breaks. And once again, I'll place my cursor at the beginning of this line, I'll go to the Layout ribbon, to that Breaks menu, but instead of doing a page break, I'll do a section break. And I'll just choose the type of section break that pushes the text down to the next page. So when I click on that, at first, this looks pretty similar to what we had when we did a simple page break. Since I have my hidden formatting symbols turned on, we can actually see the section break here, and we can see that it pushes everything below it down to the next page. But this is also a separate section. And sections will separate different column settings. So I can place my cursor here on this section, then I can go to the Layout ribbon, back to that Columns menu, and this time let's do the 2-column layout where the left column is smaller, and that looks really good. That is what I wanted. And if I scroll up in the document, everything above this section break is still in the 1-column layout. Okay, so next I want to scroll down here and find where we've got this technology forecast text. And I'm going to click to place my cursor before that line. I'll go to the layout ribbon to breaks. And I'm going to do another section break here. We'll just do another next page section break. So that starts another section down on the next page. And in this section, I'll go to the columns menu and I'm going to set this to the 3-column layout. So now I have a section here with 3 columns, a section with 2 columns, and my original section that still has the 1-column layout. So there are page breaks and section breaks, but we can also do column breaks. We'll go back to the second page where we have 2 columns. And in this first column, we've got some quotes and we've got some contact information. But when we get to where it says just droning around, I want to move that to the next column. So to do that, I can just place my cursor at the beginning of that line, go to the layout ribbon, go to the breaks menu, and this time we'll choose a column break. And you see what happens there, it just pushes everything over to the next column. And since I have my formatting symbols enabled, I can actually see where the column break happens, and everything after it is here on the next column. So now when you're done setting your document formatting, you might want to go back to the Home ribbon and turn off those formatting symbols. We still have the different sections and our different columns, we just do not see the symbols that identify them. So these can be some really useful tools for setting the layout of your document. In this video, we'll see how to add pictures to a document and format those pictures. First, we need to place the cursor where you want the picture to be. So I'll click at the beginning of this line to place my cursor there. Then I'll go to the Insert ribbon and click Pictures. And there are a few options here. The stock images library gives you a collection of pictures that you can use, but for now, I want to use my own pictures. So if you're working on Windows, you can click this device, or if you're on a Mac, that option will be Picture from File. But they'll do the same thing. You can click on that, then navigate to the folder where you have your pictures, then select the picture you want and click Insert, and it will insert it where your text cursor was. Now you should see that this picture is currently selected. I know that it's selected because I see these dots, or what we call handles, on the edges and the corners. If you click anywhere outside of the picture, it is not selected, and if you click on it, it is selected and we can see those handles. Okay, so next we want to format the picture. And the most basic change that you may want to make is to the size. And you can do that by grabbing one of these handles and dragging it and let go. And now I've made that picture smaller. Also, when a picture is selected, you'll see this handle above it with the circular arrow. You can drag that left or right to change the rotation of the picture. I'll just move that back. And next, this is really important when working with pictures and similar objects. When an object like a picture is selected, there will be a special ribbon for it. So I can see the picture format ribbon up at the top. Now, if the picture is not selected, that ribbon doesn't even exist. So I want to make sure I click on the picture to select it, then I can go to that ribbon. And there are lots of options here that you can apply to a picture. You can adjust the color, you can do these artistic effects. Over on the right, you could crop the picture or set specific dimensions. There are borders and picture effects. And just like with text, there are styles that you can apply, which will apply multiple changes at once. And if you don't like what you've done, you can choose a different style, or you can go to the Home ribbon and click the Undo button. But I think the most important thing we should do is set how the picture moves in relation to the text. So going back to the Picture Format ribbon, I want to point out the Position and Wrap Text menus. But I also want you to see if you happen to have a very small window, you might not see those buttons. In that case, you can click where it says Arrange, and that will show those buttons. But I'm just going to maximize this window again so we can see them easily. And let's go straight to the Wrap Text menu. And this tells me that my picture is currently set to be in line with text. So it behaves almost like a text character. Now, if I want to move the picture, I certainly can. All I need to do is grab the picture, hold my mouse button down, and drag it. But you see, what I'm dragging is this text cursor. And my picture will go wherever I drop that text cursor, even if it's in the middle of a word. And that might not be what you want. So instead, what you could do is select the picture, go to that Wrap Text menu, and try one of these wrapping options. Let's start with Square. When we do that, you'll see that the picture moves more smoothly and the text will wrap on all 4 sides. And you can experiment with the different wrapping options. If you go to top and bottom, the text will only move above or below the picture. And also in that menu, you can choose whether the picture will move with text as you add more text, or if it will stay locked on the page where you place it. Now, at first, you might assume that it's always best to wrap your text around the picture, but I don't think that's always true. Sometimes it is cleaner if the picture is locked in line with text. So I want my picture to always be underneath this first line of text. So what I can do is set the picture. So I'm going to select it, go to that wrap text menu and set it back to in line with text. And then I'll just drag it to the beginning of this line. And I want this next line to go below it. So I'll place my cursor at the beginning of that line and hit the return key to start a new paragraph, which pushes it down. And now I know that that picture will always be in this position on my page. And to finish up, there's a nice shortcut here that's only there for Windows users. When a picture is selected, this button will appear near the top right corner, and you can click on that and adjust those position and wrapping options without even going to that ribbon. Sorry, Mac users, you do have to go to the ribbon for those controls. So take some time to experiment, and if you have the exercise files, you can use the pictures that are included there. Headers and footers allow you to add small bits of important information at the top or bottom of your pages. Page numbers are probably the most common use for headers and footers. Now, headers and footers are going to be invisible if they are empty. To edit the header or the footer, you just need to double-click near the top or bottom edge of a page. So I'm going to double-click near the top edge of this page, and now I'm editing the header. The rest of my page is sort of gray, which means I cannot edit the body of the document until I close the header. But first, let's put something into the header. So I'm just going to type in some text here. And that's all I want for my header. Now, I want you to notice as you're editing a header or a footer, there is this new ribbon up at the top, the Header and Footer ribbon. When you're finished editing your header or your footer, you can click this button to close the header and footer up in that ribbon, or you can just double-click somewhere outside of the header or footer, and that closes it, and now you can edit the rest of the document normally. So now I can scroll through and I can see that I have that header at the top of the page, and it's there at the beginning of every page in my document. So by default, your headers and footers will be on every page. Now next, let's do a footer, and this works basically the same way, except this time I'm going to double-click near the bottom edge of the page, and now I'm editing the footer. So naturally, I could type in some text, or I could use one of these automated options that appears up here in the header and footer ribbon. I could insert some document information or the date and time, but what I want to do is a page number. Now, this menu looks a little different on a Mac. If you're working on a Mac, you'll choose the page number option from this menu and then follow the prompts that it gives you. But here on Windows, I want the page number to be in the footer, so I'm going to go to this bottom of page section and choose one of these options. I'll just choose plain number 2. And now you'll see I have this page number, and it's going to repeat at the bottom of every page. Scrolling up to the top, I can see that it's even there on the first page. Now, sometimes you may not want to have the header or the footer appear on the very first page. Some people think that it looks better if you don't have those on the first page, especially with page numbers. So if that's the case for you, what you can do is go up to the header and footer ribbon and enable this box that says Different First Page. So now I still have my page numbers at the bottom of every page, and I still have the footer up at the top, but I do not have those on the first page. Of course, from here, I could add something else to the header or the footer on the first page, but for now, I'm just going to leave this alone. And finally, what if you want to remove the page numbers later? Since page numbers are an automated thing, the best way to remove or change the page numbers would be to just go back to that header and footer ribbon, go back to the page number option, and choose a different option, or you can choose to remove page numbers from here. I'm not going to make any changes. I'm just going to keep page numbers that I have now. And since I'm finished, I want to close the footer, so I'm just going to double-click somewhere outside of it, and now my headers and footers are set.